Hey guys, happy Friday. Go ahead and put away what you were working on and get out your math notebook. Go ahead and label it with today's date at the top. Today is January 8th. And I wanted to talk to you guys about your test scores from yesterday. So I was looking at your test scores yesterday, and here are some of the results that I had. Here's some of the results I had. Okay, so some really good ones, some lower ones. And I had 6 people who had 94s. I had 3 people who had 88s. I had 2 people who had a 76. 1 person who had 100. I had 4 people who had a 52. And 5 people who had a 65. And there are other scores too, okay? But these were just some of the scores that we had. Now, I wanted to try and figure out overall how you guys were doing. You know, how did our Topic 9 test go? And I have so many numbers. There's 49 of us. There's so many numbers, and I'm not sure how to get all this data organized in a way that I can kind of compare our results and get a good, you know, some average numbers, maybe see what was the number that we got the most of, you know, what was the most popular score we had. But luckily, I remembered there's some math things that we can do here that could help me with this data. Okay, there's a couple of processes I could go through that would help me organize this data. Okay, and that's what we're going to learn about today, is organizing data so we can kind of read it better and see some good results, okay, when we have lots of numbers. So, lights off, please. And we're going to start by watching a video. Oh, of course, my phone is ringing. Hold on.
Let me guess.
All right, here we go. Let me get our volume up. I know my volume's not all the way up. All right.
Hi, I'm Ron.
Oh.
Welcome to Math Antics. In this lesson, we're going to learn about mixed numbers and how they relate to improper fraction.
That's how we're learning today. You're going to learn that, just not yet. Technical difficulties. There we go.
Hi, this is Ron. Welcome to Math Antics. In this lesson, we're going to learn about 3 important math concepts called the mean, the median, and the mode. Math often deals with data sets, and data sets are often just collections or groups of numbers.
Like
These
our test
numbers may be
scores.
the results of scientific measurements, or surveys, or other data collection methods. For example, you might record the ages of each member of your family into a data set. Or you might measure the weight of each of your pets and list them in a data set. Those data sets are fairly small and easy to understand, but you could have much bigger data sets. A really big data set might contain the cost of every item in a store, or the top speed of every land mammal, or the brightness of all the stars in our galaxy. Those data sets would contain a lot of different numbers, and if you had to look at a big data set all at one time, it would be pretty hard to make sense of it or say much about it besides, well, that's a lot of numbers. But that's where mean, median, and mode can really help us out. There are 3 different properties of data sets that can give us useful, easy to understand information about the data set so that we can see the big picture and understand what the data means about the world we live in. That sounds pretty useful, huh? So let's learn what each property really is and find out how to calculate them for any particular data set. Let's start with the mean. You may not have ever heard of something called the mean before, but I'll bet you've heard of the average. If so, then I've got good news. Mean means average. Mean and average are just two different terms for the exact same property of a data set. The mean, or average, is an extremely useful property. To understand what it is, let's look at a simple data set that contains 5 numbers. As a visual aid, let's also represent those numbers with stacks of blocks whose heights correspond to their values. 1, 8, 3, 2, 6. Right now, since each of the 5 numbers is different, the stacks of blocks are all different heights. But what if we rearrange the blocks with the goal of making the stacks the same height? In other words, if each stack could have the exact same amount, what would that amount be? Well, with a bit of trial and error, you'll see that we have enough blocks for each stack to have a total of 4. That means that the mean, or average, for our original data set would be 4. Some of the numbers are greater than 4, and some are less. But if the amounts could all be made the same, they would all become 4. So that's the concept of the mean. It's the value you'd get if you could smooth out or flatten all of the different data values into one consistent value. But is there a way that we could use math to calculate the mean of a data set? After all, it would be very inconvenient if we always had to use stacks of blocks to do it. There's gotta be an easier way. To learn the mathematical procedure for calculating the mean, let's start with blocks again. But this time, instead of using trial and error, let's use a more systematic way to make the stacks all the same height. This way involves the clever combination of addition and division. We know that we want to end up with 5 stacks that all have the same number of blocks, right? So first, let's add up all of the numbers, which is like putting all of the blocks we have into one big stack. Adding up all of the numbers, or counting all the blocks, shows us that we have a total of 20. Next, we divide that number, or stack, into 5 equal parts. Since the stack has a total of 20 blocks, dividing it into 5 equal stacks means that we'll have 4 in each, since 20 divided by 5 equals 4. So that's the math procedure you use to find the mean of a data set. It's just 2 simple steps. First, you add up all the numbers in the set, and then you divide the total you get by how many numbers you added up. The answer you get is the mean of the data set. Let's use that procedure to find the mean age of the members of this fine-looking family here. If we add them all up using a calculator, or by hand if you'd like, the total of the ages is 222 years. But then, we need to divide that total by the number of ages we added, which is 6. 222 divided by 6 is 37. So that's the mean age of all the members in this family. All right, that's the mean. Now what about the median? The median is the middle of the data set. It's the number that splits the data set into 2 equally sized groups, or halves. One half contains members that are greater than or equal to the median, and the other half contains members that are less than or equal to the median. Sometimes finding the median of a data set is easy, and sometimes it's hard. That's because finding the middle value of a data set requires that its members be in order from the least to the greatest, or vice versa. And if the data set has a lot of numbers, it might take a lot of work to put them in the right order, if they aren't already that way. So to make things easier, let's start with a really basic data set that isn't in order. It's pretty easy to see that we can put this data set in order from the least to the greatest value just by switching the 2 and the 1. There, now we have the data set 1, 2, 3, and finding the median, or middle, of this data set is easy. It's just 2, because the 2 is located exactly in the middle. That almost seems too easy, doesn't it? But don't worry, it gets harder. But before we try a harder problem, I want to point out that sometimes the mean and the median of a data set are the same number, and sometimes they're not. In the case of our simple data set, 1, 2, 3, the median is 2, and the mean is also 2, as you can see if we rearrange the amounts or follow the procedure we learned to calculate the mean. But what about the first data set that we found the mean of? We determined that the mean of this data set is 4, but what about the median? Well, the median is the middle, and since this data set is already in order from least to greatest, it's easy to see that the 3 is located in the middle, since it splits the other members into 2 equal groups. So for this data set, the mean is 4, but the median is 3. So to find the median of a set of numbers, first you need to make sure that all the numbers are in order, and then you can identify the member that's exactly in the middle by making sure there's an equal number of members on either side of it. Okay, so far so good. But some of you may be wondering, what if a data set doesn't have an obvious middle member? All of the sets we've found the median of so far have an odd number of members. But what if a set has an even number of members, like the data set 1, 2, 3, 4? There isn't a member in the middle that splits the set into two equally sized groups. If that's the case, we can actually use what we learned about the mean to help us out. If the data set has an even number of members, then to find the median, we need to take the middle two numbers and calculate the mean or average of those two. By doing that, we're basically figuring out what number would be exactly halfway between the two middle numbers, and that number will be our median. For example, in the set 1, 2, 3, 4, we need to take the middle two numbers, 2 and 3, and find the mean of those numbers. We can do that by adding 2 and 3, and then dividing by 2. 2 plus 3 equals 5, and 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. So the median of the data set is 2.5. Even though the number 2.5 isn't actually a member of the data set, it's the median, because it represents the middle of the data set, and it splits the members into two equally sized groups. Okay, so now you know the difference between mean and median, but what about the mode of a data set? What in the world does that mean? Well, mode is just a technical word for the value in a data set that occurs most often. In the data sets we've seen so far, there hasn't even been a mode because none of the data values were ever repeated. But what if you had this data set? This set has 6 members, but some of the values are repeated. If we rearrange them, you can see that there's 1 1, 2 2s, and 3 3s. The mode of this data set is the value that occurs most often or most frequently, so that would be 3 since there's 3 3s. Now don't get confused just because the number 3 was repeated 3 times. The mode is the number that's repeated most often, not how many times it was repeated. As I mentioned, if each member in a data set occurs only once, it has no mode. But it's also possible for a data set to have more than one mode. Here's an example of a data set like that. In this set, the number 7 is repeated twice, but so is the number 15. That means they tie for the title of mode. This set has 2 modes, 7 and 15. Okay, so now that you know what the mean, median, and mode of a data set are, let's put all that new information to use in one final real-world example. Suppose there's this guy who makes and sells custom electric guitars. Here's a table showing how many guitars he sold during each month of the year. Let's find the mean, median, and mode of this data set. First, to find the mean, we need to add up the number of guitars sold in each month. You can do the addition by hand or you can use a calculator if you want to. Either way, be careful since that's a lot of numbers to add up and we don't want to make a mistake. The answer I get is 108. So that's the total he sold for the whole year. But to get the mean sold each month, we need to divide that total by the number of months, which is 12. 108 divided by 12 is 9. So the mean, or average, is 9. Next, to find the median of the data set, we're going to have to rearrange the 12 data points in order from smallest to largest so we can figure out what the middle value is. There, that's better. Since there's an even number of members in this set, we can't just choose the middle number. So we're going to have to pick the middle 2 numbers and then find the mean of them. 9 and 10 are in the middle since there's an equal number of data values on either side of them. So we need to take the mean of 9 and 10. That's easy. 9 plus 10 equals 19, and then 19 divided by 2 is 9.5. So the median number of guitars sold is 9.5. That means that in half of the months, he sold more than 9.5, and in half of the months, he sold less than 9.5. Last of all, let's identify the mode of this data set, if there is one. Well, let's see. There's 2 8s in the data set. Oh, but there's 3 10s. That looks like the most frequent number. So 10 is the mode of this data set. It's the result that occurred most often. All right, so that's the basics of mean, median, and mode. There are 3 really useful properties of data sets, and now you know how to find them. But sometimes the hardest part about mean, median, and mode is just remembering which is which. So remember that mean means average, median is in the middle, and mode starts with MO, which can remind you that it's the number that occurs most often. Remember, to get good at math, you need to do more than just watch videos about it. You need to practice. So be sure to try finding the mean, median, and mode on your own. As always, thanks for watching Mathantics, and I'll see you next time.
Learn more at Mathantics.
Lights, please. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we need to then add to our math notebook our 3 new vocab words that we just learned: mean, median, and mode. You may go ahead and use your iPad as a resource. I would have a definition, and an example would be a good thing to add too. Go ahead now, Math Notebook 3 math vocab words. Raise your hand if you're still working. Okay, couple more minutes. gentlemen, let's go over this. To help us go over this, Malia, will you turn off the left light? I posted a nice chart on Schoology under math that will help you. It's got some good definitions in case we forget and kind of tells us how. So the mean, it is the sum of a set of numbers divided by the number of numbers in the set. Okay, and what does that word mean? What does it mean in math terms?
The average.
Average, yeah, average. Okay, so next to mean, you should have the word average. The median, it is the middle number. Okay, median, middle. They both have that M and that D. Okay, that can help you remember. When data are arranged in numerical order. What does that mean, numerical order? Yes.
Median number is the middle when they are in order.
Good, but my question was, what does that numerical order, what does that mean? Thanks for volunteering. Megan. The right order of the numbers. What does that mean, the right order? What is the right order, Megan? 1, 2, 3, 4. Good example. So from least to greatest. Good. You must put the numbers from least to greatest to find the mode. Okay? It will not work otherwise. I mean the median. Sorry. The median. Okay? If they are not in order and you find the middle number and all your numbers are mixed up, it will be incorrect. Okay? All right, the mode. The mode is the number that occurs the most often. Okay? I can remember mode because they both start with an M and an O. Most, mode. The number that appears the most is your mode. Okay? One that they have not talked about that we will work with some, it's not as common, is the range. Okay? The range, go ahead and add that to your math vocab list, please. So you have mean, median, mode, and add range below that. The range is the difference between the greatest and the least numbers in a set of data. So if my data, let's look at test scores. If my test scores, if I had 100, 72, and 85, and I had a 46. To find the range, I would take my greatest number, which is 100, and take my smallest number and find that difference. This answer will be your range. All right? All right, let's look at some good examples. So I'm going to pull up on Schoology. All right, this is also on Schoology, and I would recommend saving this to use as you're doing your homework. This will help you. It gives us the rules for our mean, median, mode, and range, and it also gives us an example. Sometimes it's easy to see a definition, but maybe you're a little confused on, okay, you're giving me the words and definition, but I'm not quite sure how to apply that. So it's nice to then have that example. So let's read through this. It says, to find the mean, which is the average, we add all the numbers in the set and divide by the number of add-ins. Okay? So they have an example here. So their data, their numbers, was 23, 25, 29, 31, another 31, and they added all 5 numbers. When they added all 5 numbers, they got 139. Now they take that 139 and they divide by how many numbers they had in that data set, which was 5. When they divided, they got a decimal. Remember, we're not leaving numbers as remainders. If you have a remainder, You need to work it out into a decimal then. Okay? That answer then is their mean. The median, the number that falls in the middle of your sequential list of numbers. So if you look at their list of 5 numbers, they're still using the same 5 numbers, but they put them in order from least to greatest. So when they put them in order, it goes 23, 25, 29, 31, and another 31. When they work their way to the middle now, the number in the middle is 29. That's the median. Now they got lucky having an odd set of numbers. They had 5. But let's take a look. What if I didn't have an odd set of numbers? What if I had 6 numbers? I'm going to put my numbers in order from least to greatest. Here's my test scores that I have, and I put them in order from least to greatest. So let's go through and let's find the middle. So here's my 2 ends, and it helps to cross them off as you go. Okay, let's cross off another one, both sides. And now when I go to cross off though, I've got 2 numbers in the middle. Can I just cross off whichever one?
No.
Can I just pick one?
No.
What do you think we have to do there? Charlie? I have to add them and then what? Yes, I would add them and then divide by 2 because I have these numbers. I have to find what is the middle of these 2 numbers. That number that's going to fall in the middle, that's what I need. Now, if by chance you had, here's an example. My example is I have 11 and 13. Let's say I had other numbers here. I was working on finding that median. And when I got down to the middle of my data set, I was left with 11 and 13. Ladies and gentlemen, this should be mental math at this point because what would be exactly in the middle of 11 and 13? 12. So do I have any math there to work out? No, that's something I could solve mentally. But do I know mentally what's in the middle of 74 and 83? Not just by looking at it, no. This one was easy. This is just your skip counting by 1. You do that in preschool. This one, though, not so easy. Okay? Now, if the numbers aren't too far away, 74 and 83, they're not too far away. You could make yourself a timeline and write them out, 74, 75, 76, all the way to 83 to see what's in the middle. Okay? And that would be okay. However, what if I have some data? So I've got some numbers, and my numbers I was left with in the middle, I had some more numbers. I had 413 and 946. Would that be realistically for me then to write out my numbers like in a numbered line to see what's in the middle? No, there's way too many numbers to write that out. So that's where you would do like Charlie said. Add these and then divide by 2. You're going to find then your middle spot, just like finding your average. Same process. Okay? All right. So your best thing is to hope for odd numbers. That's what makes the median easiest. If it's an even number, that's okay. We're just going to have a little bit of work to do, but nothing too bad. The mode is the number that appears most often. So when they looked at their data numbers, 23, 25, 29, 31, and 31. What number do we see the most often there, Hannah? Yeah, 31. We had 31 2 times. All the other numbers we had just once. Now there are times that there won't be a mode. if all the numbers only appeared once, so for example, my test score is right here. 52, 61, 74, 83, 96, and 100. Do I have any number that appears more than once? No, they're all tied for the mode, so there isn't one, okay? And that's okay if there isn't one sometimes. And our last one on here, my range. That's our difference between our greatest and our least number. So they have their numbers in order already. So that makes it easy to see. Our greatest number was 31. My smallest number was 23. So I do 31 minus 23 equals 8. Your range is 8. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, save this document that I posted on Schoology. It's a good one. You're going to need it when you go to do homework. All right? I want us to practice. I'm going to roll on over. Malia, both lights, please.
Off or on?
On for both. All right. I want us to look at these numbers. Write down these numbers in your math notebook now. All right, first, I want us to find the mean. What is a word that means the mean? What's that definition? One word? Average. What is my process for finding the average? Good. Add all these numbers. So right now I want you to add all these numbers. Everybody's doing this. We're not just sitting, guys. What do you get when you add all those up?
24.
24. Very nice. Is 24 my answer? Am I done?
No.
No. What do I do with 24? Sophia?
Count how many numbers are.
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What do I do with 6?
Divided by 6.
Divide it by 6 now. What is 24 divided by 6?
4.
4. That is our answer for our mean. All right, next one. Median. What is a word that means median?
The middle.
The middle. So my middle number, I just start counting to the middle? No, I heard some people say yes, some people say no. Mason?
You take the middle 2.
The middle 2, okay. So in the middle I have 4 and 6. So in the middle of that I would have 5. So 5 is my answer. Sophia?
You have to put them in order first.
I have to put them in order first. Ladies and gentlemen, biggest mistake in finding our median. Are these numbers in order from least to greatest? No, so let's rewrite them. 1, 2, 2, 4, 6, 9. Now are they in order from least to greatest?
Yes.
Okay, now can I find my middle?
Yes.
All right, let's cross off. You're doing this also. I'm down to 2. Now what? I add them together and I could divide by 2. Or can I mentally know? Do I know what's in the middle of 2 and 4?
Yes.
What comes in the middle of 2 and 4?
3.
3.
Next.
2, 3, 4. Very nice. All right, next up, my mode. What is a word for mode? Alyssa?
Most often.
Most often, yeah, just most. The number that appears most. Do I have a number that appears more than once?
Yes.
What is it, Malia?
It's 9.
She's coming over to see. She's having a hard time seeing over there.
Is it the 2, 9, 4, 6?
Yep. What number appears the most? Right here.
2.
2. Very nice. I have 2 2s. Is there anything else I have more of? No. Sometimes you could have 2 modes. I could have 2 2s and 2 9s. So 2 and 9 would be your mode. Okay, that happens sometimes. All right, last one. My range. How do I find my range? What is the process for that, Kara?
Take the greatest number and the least, and you subtract them.
All right, so I take my greatest number, which is 9, and I subtract my smallest, which is minus 1 equals 8. 8 is our range. Ladies and gentlemen, this should be in your math notebook. Now, these are smaller numbers, easy to work with, right? But I'm going to be giving you guys some bigger numbers when it's time for homework. And I'm going to even be giving you maybe some fractions, maybe some decimals, okay? But I wanted you to see some smaller numbers that were easy to work with, how to do the process, okay? Just because it's bigger numbers, it might take us just a little bit more to work on our math, but you know how to do the same process then, all right? Ladies and gentlemen, today is Friday. You have no math homework. However, I have lots of friends who have missing homework. You need to work on missing homework for me. Remember, if you do missing or late work, I don't know that it's done. I've already put your grades into Harmony. So if you're doing missing or late work, you need to send me a message on Schoology and let me know, hey, Mrs. Bush, I did worksheet 5. Can you put that in for me? Yep, got it. You're good. Okay? And also remember, it's always better to do work on time. That's how you get full credit. Late work is only half credit. Okay? I've had lots of questions lately about grading. Ladies and gentlemen, your worksheets and your tests on Schoology, I regrade those. I know that Schoology sometimes marks things wrong for certain labels, or maybe you had a space where there wasn't a space. Maybe you spelled something differently. I will go back and regrade those. Okay? So no need to send me a message and check. I will do that. So when it goes into Harmony, it has been regraded. All right? You can go back to Schoology in a couple days and go check that worksheet to see once I've regraded what you got on it. Okay? But I know Schoology does that for the grading, so they'll be checked. Same with Mrs. Long's class. She will recheck those. All right? With your extra time then, since you have no math homework, my friends who are done with everything, they're caught up on their work. You could be doing your reading logs for Mrs. Long, and I know you have your Khan Academy course mastery for language to work on. All right? All right, go ahead and get started.